We all knew this was coming. I think that depending on who you talk to, saying that Barbie is gay is going to get very different results. The general public might call you crazy because Barbie is the pinnacle of heteronormativity, a feminine girly girl destined to marry an equally traditional manly man. In fact, I think it's easier to find jokes about Ken being gay than it would be to convince someone that Barbie herself isn't straight. Which is kinda messed up if you think about it, as if simply being around feminine things is automatically putting your quote-unquote masculinity in question. But that's a discussion for a different day. The point here is that Barbie is the ultimate girl, and there's no way they were going to make her a part of the LGBTQ community. But if you tell a galaxy-brained internet kid that Barbie is gay, they won't even question it. I am that second kind of person, and this video is made mostly for that second kind as well. Though if you belong to the first group of naysayers, you might want to stick around just to see if I can change your mind. I grew up watching Barbie movies and never really considered the possibility of our protagonist being sapphic as a kid, and if I did, it was mostly as a joke. That secretly had a lot of truth to it, but I wasn't ready to face those feelings. No, this blessing only came to me in recent years, when I had the brilliant idea of revisiting the cinematic icon with a more critical look. And folks, it is not looking straight. Of course, when you choose to look at the world through gay-tinted glasses, then anything can be read as evidence. I could pick any film out of Barbie's massive lineup and claim that there's enough proof there to state that she is into girls. But that's because so many of Barbie's core themes resonate with a lot of the aspects of LGBTQ struggles and identities. The message of being who you want to be, or being completely true to yourself, is a huge part of the queer experience. And putting a bunch of girls through life-changing adventures while they ramble about how much they trust and depend on each other also strikes a chord with a lot of the members of the community. Romance being such a huge part of the narratives in early movies already encourages some of its viewers to look at the subsequent Barbie films through a romantic point of view. And with the brand focusing more on girl power later on, it led to a lot of movies having a supposed male romantic interest that is barely relevant, while having Barbie spend most of her time with a female counterpart, which brings the perfect scenario to imagine the two of them as having deeper feelings for one another. That's not to say that the relationships depicted in these movies must be of an exclusively romantic essence either. After all, romantic attraction isn't the endgame when it comes to LGBTQ relationships, as many aromantic folks will be glad to point out. But Barbie still has some very intense moments with her female friends, and it can resonate with people as going beyond simple friendship, being romantic or even queer platonic in nature. In this video, I wish to present my top 5 gayest Barbie movies, but I understand that the homoerotic moments in the franchise as a whole go way past the examples that I picked. My list was based on whatever film spoke louder to me, but I'm pretty sure plenty of people out there have their own interpretations as well. Let's enter this rainbow world of magical connections as I wanna talk about gay Barbie movies. I'm going to present this list starting from movie number 5 and going to the top, stating my arguments for each choice and also offering some honorable mentions that I felt were worth pointing out. In number 5 comes Barbie and the Pink Shoes, released in 2013. The story follows a dancer named Kristen who is transported with her best friend Haley to a magical world where all ballet pieces come to life. This movie works in a Wizard of Oz kind of logic, where figures from Kristen's life appear as characters in the ballet world.
I think I'll miss you most of all, Hilarion.
The most relevant to those people is Madame Natasha, the leader from the ballet school, who insists that dancers never deviate from the formula and stick to a perfect mold at all times. She appears as an ice queen who wishes to freeze out anyone who doesn't fit into the norm. That premise alone is very inviting for a gay reading. An authority figure who wants everyone to follow tradition and is defeated by being free-spirited and true to one's nature? Now that's an allegory. Hayley is Kristen's costume designer and is incredibly supportive of her best friend. She stands by her before rehearsals to give her reassurance, she comforts Kristen when the dancer gives in to frustration, and she encourages her friend to follow her true nature. At the same time, Kristen is posed as the more adventurous of the two, and brings a good balance to Hayley's tendencies to sink into anxiety. In the ballet world, Hayley is considered a deviation, and is therefore not only frozen by the Ice Queen, but also low-key used as bait to capture Kristen, the biggest deviant of all. Saving her companion becomes the dancer's biggest drive by the end of the film, and she does so by following her own steps instead of bending to the Ice Queen's wishes, thus granting everyone the possibility of being who they want to be. This movie also comes with the given advantage of having two male love interests that mean little to nothing to Kristen and spend more time interacting with one another rather than wooing our protagonist. They are presented as rivals, but they end up bonding as the movie goes on, and their vibe becomes exactly like those bro posts where the bros are just in love with one another.
Dude, that Ice Queen's like super powerful. Yeah, man. Though not as powerful as my feelings for you, bro. Bro.
Like in this one scene where Kristen needs to reach the Ice Queen's palace and both boys arrive riding horses. Since they've been fighting for Kristen's attention at the start of the film, you assume that this is the moment where she picks one of the suitors and rides with him to the castle while the other one rides alone, right? Wrong. Kristen rides one of the horses on her own, and the two boys ride the other horse together. It's amazing. They're bromates. This one only made it to number 5 because even though it has two possible pairings, it goes for a comedic vibe rather than a dramatic one, so a bit of the intensity of the relationship feels weaker when compared to the rest of the rankings. But the comedy is also the reason why it made it to top 5, because even gays deserve to have cheerful and positive movies made about them. This is the funniest Barbie film, and we will never forget our beloved Bro TP. On number 4, we have Barbie Mariposa, released in 2008 as a spin-off of the Fairytopia trilogy. Here, we follow Mariposa, a butterfly fairy who feels like she doesn't quite fit in, and has to save her kingdom when her queen is poisoned. This one is here for two reasons, the first being Mariposa herself. She is a bookworm who dreams of visiting places beyond the limits of her realm, mostly because she feels like she doesn't belong there. Her friends try to reassure her that she is welcomed, but she just can't shake off the idea that she's different from the rest, and that no one understands her true nature. Like, sweetie, that's so not straight of you. The biggest reason for this choice, however, is the villain of the movie. Hannah is a fairy who works for the queen but wishes to take the throne for herself, so she joins forces with the fairy's natural predators and poisons the monarch. Except, before you find out about this, you get these really intense interactions between Hannah and Mariposa. She laments Mariposa's absence from a recent party, asking why the other fairy didn't come, and Mariposa's like,
You wouldn't understand.
And Hannah is like,
I think I would. I don't always feel like I belong either.
And then finishes their conversation by telling Mariposa to stick with her and giving our protagonist a wink. And I could not come up with a heterosexual explanation for it. Even within the plot of the movie, Hannah has no practical reason to want Mariposa as an ally. Hannah has a powerful job as the queen's confidant, and Mariposa is just some commoner working as a maid of sorts. Hannah acts sweet in front of others, but you don't see her trying to get anyone else to support her the way she just did at the start. She seems to have an unexplained fascination for Mariposa, and tries to get her to join her side even after she's been revealed to be a villain. Mariposa doesn't seem to reciprocate her feelings, and they're kept apart for most of the movie anyway, so this thread doesn't go very far. But it's still so striking that it hasn't left my mind since I first watched that conversation. Either way, it seems that Mariposa's potential for a true gal pal narrative didn't go unnoticed, because movie number 3 on our list is 2013's Mariposa and the Fairy Princess. In the second installment of the Mariposa saga, our hero is called to represent her kingdom while visiting the Crystal Fairies. Both fairy types are very prejudiced against one another, but Mariposa knows that those fears are irrational and inaccurate, and tries to remain open-minded even when the others are being unreasonable. It's like somebody saw Mariposa 1 and was like, yeah, this was a great movie, but do you know what we really need? More gay. And I am very grateful for that. A big part of the film is a very special episode on how racism is bad, and it's a good moral for the kids, so I'm not complaining. But then, we get to the relationship between Mariposa and the Princess of the Crystal Fairies. And I gotta tell you, it's some good stuff. While most of the realm is wary of the new visitor, Princess Catania is very interested in her, trying to get to know her as soon as she comes to town. Her efforts are constantly interrupted by her father and various royal duties, so their first encounters are always brief, but they are still surrounded by an aura of yearning, both from the princess's determination to get closer to the fairy, and from the fact that Catania is always a nice welcoming break from the array of microaggressions that Mariposa goes through. Catania tries her best to make Mariposa feel at home, going way beyond the efforts of any other subject. She transforms the fairy's bedroom from an ugly forest into a beautiful garden, and gifts her an entire library because she knows Mariposa is a bookworm, in a very Beauty and the Beast move. Catania takes Mariposa to see the most precious sights of her kingdom, fully knowing that any other crystal fairy would shun her for it. They exchange mementos of their own lands, claiming that it can help them remember each other in times of need. As they sit side by side in a rainbow rock cave, Catania opens up about her trauma to Mariposa, with how she's been too scared to fly ever since she was kidnapped as a child. And you know the one thing that made her overcome her paralyzing fears? That's right. Saving Mariposa. Like, I'm sorry guys, this is top tier romance right there. Gals at their peak, pal. As the power source for the kingdom is damaged, Mariposa has the idea of surrendering their gifts in an attempt to light up the beacons again. And I cannot find a single heterosexual explanation for this look right here. It's just a mood. Anyway, they save the fairies and redeem the villain and learn a lesson, and everyone has a dance party. This is another one of those Barbie movies where Barbie technically has a male love interest, but he barely interacts with the protagonist for the whole film. They meet at the beginning, they meet at the end, and they don't have a fraction of the chemistry that the two female leads did. Prince Carlos tried his best, but he's no match for our princess. If you need me, I'll be over here thinking about Catania's glands. For our number 2 entry, what if Scrooge was a girl and in love with Bob Cratchit, who is also a girl? If that sounds like your thing, then you should probably check out Barbie and a Christmas Carol from 2008. I already talked about the uniqueness of this movie in previous videos, so I won't get too much into it here, but basically you've got a Barbie-fied version of Scrooge learning a lesson about loving Christmas. They still needed to appeal to kids, so they couldn't have a grumpy old man as their lead, and went with a spoiled opera singer instead. Eden is a diva who demands that her co-stars work on Christmas, which enrages the crew. Her best friend Catherine tries to reason with her, but Eden remains firm. That night, she is haunted by the ghost of her Aunt Marie, who tells her that she will be visited by 3 spirits of Christmas in the hopes of changing her ways and allowing herself to see beauty in the world once more. As the Phantom of Christmas Past visits her, we get a glimpse of Eden's childhood. Her aunt was very controlling and made her practice endlessly, stripping her away of all freedom. The only times she felt truly happy were when she was in the company of Catherine and her family, who welcomed Eden as if she was one of their own. With the ghost of the present, we see how even Catherine is getting tired of Eden's selfish ways, and she wonders what happened to that sweet girl she knew when they were kids. She volunteers at an orphanage where she organizes a Christmas pageant, and she seems very taken with one of the kids. Eden is humbled by her kindness and dedication, and also starts to wonder how she herself became so harsh and jaded. When the spirit of the future comes, she shows Eden her most likely outcome. A bleak, joyless life where she has fallen on hard times, and she discovers that Catherine has become not only distant, but also just as selfish and unloving as Eden once was. Eden's journey here is based less on the actual spirit of Christmas and more on the relationship that she has with Catherine. Her happiest days were all back when they had the freedom to be together, and the most dreadful part of the future is seeing how much they have grown apart. At the start of the movie, Eden seems very upset that her backstage preparations weren't up to code, but in reality, she was just lashing out at the fact that Catherine wasn't there to watch her. To Eden, Catherine represents everything that can make life feel worth living. She is family, love, and comfort.
Catherine.
Her tragic future comes to be when she cuts Catherine out of her life, causing her friend to lose her spark as well. The only way to remedy that is to rekindle the closeness that they had as kids. So Eden gives the workers a free holiday and takes off with Catherine to their family's home. At this point, Catherine had already decided to adopt this movie's equivalent of Tiny Tim. You know, sometimes a family can be a kid, 3 ghosts, a weird cat, and 2 ladies who love each other very much. Catherine does have a supposed male love interest, but he's only there for a brief scene or 2. There's this subplot about him trying to ask her out on a date, but even though she says yes, it's not him that she's spending Christmas with, you know? Like, if she's really your girl, then why is she riding Eden's carriage with their child on their way to their holiday retreat? The relationship between Eden and Catherine is the key to making the story work. The happiest ending is only achievable if they stick together, and their separation is fated to bring them misery. They care very deeply for one another, and they are at their best when they remain close. I was not expecting this out of A Christmas Carol, but now the bar for future adaptations has been set fantastically high. Before I get to our number 1 movie, there's some honorable mentions that I would like to bring up. Barbie and the Mermaid Tale 2 has great gay potential with their leads. They have a nice rival dynamic at first, but then they learn to work together, and they have good synergy between them. Same goes for Princess Charm School, especially with the way the rival slowly warms up to the protagonist and gives up her future as a princess in the name of Barbie's well-being. They end up closer than ever, and it's really sweet. The 2 main female leads in Starlight Adventure are really cute together, and I'm calling this one gay just because I ship it. The plot of Princess and the Pauper is having to hide your true identity and passions, and the color palette of the main characters is literally the trans flag. You also have a cat who acts like a dog, and everyone's super cool about that, and that's the kind of energy that I want to see in the world. Like I said, a lot of my movie choices here are based on whatever aspects or scenes sounded more striking to me, but there's plenty of material in other movies to justify completely different rankings. Except no other Barbie film comes even close to the wonderful, unrivaled queerness of The Diamond Castle. This is the movie that inspired this whole thinking process. This one was so emblematic it wouldn't leave my mind for years. I simply must discuss it. Two girls named Liana and Alexa live in a cottage in the woods and make a living by selling flowers. They spend their days strolling through the forest and singing songs about how much they mean to one another and how strong their connection is. When they discover a magic mirror with a lady trapped inside, they embark on a journey to find the Diamond Castle, a place made of music and magic. They are constantly chased by Lydia, an evil woman who wants to destroy the palace, but the girls are protected from her spells because of their matching heart necklaces, which are powered by the strength of their love for one another. They run into two British lads who are characterized as womanizing charlatans, and although they take an interest on the girls, the two travelers don't seem attracted to them at all. A lot of the narrative is focused on the relationship between Liana and Alexa. The story is introduced as the tale of two best friends destined to be together, and who had a fight that nearly brought tragedy into the whole world. The fight itself stems from a conflict of interest. Alexa wants to stay behind and enjoy a life of comfort, and Liana intends to keep her promise of finding the Diamond Castle, so the two of them are separated. But just as that happens, they immediately regret it. Alexa gets captured by the villain, and Liana spends a good while lamenting over their argument, talking about how much Alexa means to her.
She knows me better than anyone else in the entire universe. She's been with me through the best and worst times of my life. I feel like a part of me is gone.
Liana later tries to save her friend, taking her into her arms as she remains under Lydia's spell, which once again is broken thanks to the power of their mutual feelings. They find the castle and defeat the villain through song, and they all get outfit transformations. Alexa and Liana are offered a world of luxury as princesses, but they decide that the cottagecore life that they had before was more than enough to bring them happiness, as long as they stay together. They return to their old lifestyle cheerful as ever, frolicking as a pair through the woods. There's so much happening here. The sheer focus placed on the strength of the girls' bond, the absolute life goal of living in a cozy cottage with your one and only, the matching heart necklaces powered by love, the amazing dissonance between having the two male leads chasing the girls around and them not caring about the boys at all. They dance together at the castle, but then they wave the lads goodbye as they travel back to their domestic life. Alexa and Liana's color palettes matching the bi and lesbian flags respectively is 99% probably not planned, but it adds to the vibe regardless. There's a whole scene where the girls solve a riddle and are carried away from the boys in a rainbow bridge. I couldn't make this up even if I tried. This is what I mean when I say that the themes of these movies resonate in part with a queer audience. It feels comforting to have a film where two female partners live a happy life together and deeply value each other's company, choosing it over any forced traditional romance alternatives or any other lifestyles that are presented to them. And it feels extremely validating to have a story like that be told by a company who encourages you to be who you truly are. And to those of you who feel like I might be overthinking this, of course I am. But what else am I supposed to do? Queer representation in media has come a long way, and more strides continue to be made with each passing day. Having shows and movies depicting LGBTQ characters and relationships in a positive manner is wonderful, and I believe that only good can come from it. Believe me, I have sung my praise over that. But the biggest steps forward, as commendable as they might be, have also been very recent, so for the longest time, there wasn't much to look up to as a reference. Except, just because those identities weren't being represented, it didn't mean that they weren't real or present. Saying kids can't be queer won't make them cis and straight. It will just make them miserable. Actual queer individuals would find themselves relating to characters that were never explicitly declared to be part of the LGBTQ crowd, precisely because something about their journeys resonated with members of the community. If you go around looking for subtext, you might as well find it, and I didn't have to look around super hard here. If anything, these queer readings of Barbie media indicate how easy it would be to include actual canon representation into the franchise. The stories themselves, as well as how the relationships between the characters play into them, create the perfect scenarios to explore such possibilities. And you wouldn't even have to go much further than the stuff that's already been developed over the ages. Identifying with characters that have brought you joy over the years is a great source of comfort, and there's nothing wrong with arguing that those characters are a little more like you than what has been officially stated, with the intention, of course, of making the narratives more inclusive and diverse. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We can shape stories just as much as they can shape us. We will inevitably project our own feelings and conclusions upon fictional figures that we feel represent a part of us, and we can use the lessons they learn in order to guide our own journeys and find our own happy endings. If a tale changes us and makes us a little more like that narrative, nothing stops us from saying that that narrative is like us as well. Barbie movies were important to me as a kid, and in many ways, I felt like they expressed a lot about who I was. I guess now I'm just making up for the parts that they forgot to illustrate, and I know I'm not the only one doing that. Maybe someday we will have so much representation that readings like these feel obsolete, or marginalized identities will be so well accepted that we won't have to fiercely defend their existence. But until then, I'll continue to make my case and state my arguments, and hope that they can bring comfort and support to others as well. After all, that's what a community is all about. Thank you for watching. Well, hello there. It was very nice of you to watch this video. Special thanks to my beautiful Patreons for making videos like these possible. You guys rock my world. If you would like to join the gang, please click the link in the description. If you have enjoyed the video, you can also help me out by clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell too. You can also follow me on Twitter and share this video with your friends. Feel free to leave a comment down below, especially if it is about your favorite gay Barbie moment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
What's a boy?